Happy Tuesday today, everyone. Happy Taco Tuesday. I hope you went out and supported your favorite taco joint. So let's get on with it. This is Mornings with Michael for information and educational purposes only. And today we start with our word of the day. Our word today is dilatory. The young man cleaned the garage as he was dilatory. It was a dilatory act to avoid mowing the lawn. So try to put dilatory in your sentences. And now let's go to the charts and see what's happening. I think I moved the screen, so let me pull that up. Here we go. Let me share this. So this is our heat map. We had a little bit of a pullback today, and then we had some real heavy action in the oil sector I'll get to in a little bit. Microsoft was down slightly. They just had their best quarter ever. So we'll take a look at that. The big thing is in about an hour when they come on and explain how the forward-looking action will be. Apple was down a lot. Some analysts came out and said they were going to sell a lot less phones in 2024, so that hurt them. And we have profit taking in a lot of sector. Looked like AMD was down and Google missed their estimates for the quarter, so they were down as well. So let's move on. Let me share our screen on annuities. If you don't want to worry about all of this action where potentially could lose 50% like we did in 2008, where a 401k became a 201k, an annuity may be up your alley because you can never lose money in an annuity. It always goes up the step, and over time they promise to double your money, and it beats index investing by about 5% per year. How do they do that? Well, they give you a bonus when you start an annuity. Right now, some annuities are giving 25% or more bonuses. So if you want to learn more about that, please let me know. That's that with annuities. Let's go to our screens. Here's Microsoft. It's kind of bouncing around, kind of waiting for that conference call. Let's take a look at our dollar. Dollar fell slightly, down 2 cents, not too much action there. Gold tried to move up and pull back a little bit. Silver pretty flat. Copper pulled back slightly and then was up after hours. Southern Copper is pulling back a little bit. Freeport-McMoRan down slightly. Vale is down slightly as well. BHP had sold off and kind of fought back at the end, and finally Real is down slightly as well. Look at our bonds. 10-year bond was down. We don't have a chart for it, but the 2-year bond treasury yields was up. So that's kind of what people were focusing on. And I believe that's why the markets had pulled back today. Look at our 20-year bond yields are pulling back as well. So let's take a look at the VIX. The VIX continue to pull back. after its big bounce yesterday. S&P 500. It did pull back a little bit, down 0.08%, awaiting the news from the big techs. After hours is down 1.2, almost about 1.3%. The equal weight was up slightly, 0.02%. The NASDAQ had a slight pullback as well, 0.067, and now down another 0.5% after hours. The equal weight was down 0.62%. The small caps, they're kind of like a little yo-yo. They're down again. As we said earlier, they haven't made a new high in 2.5 years. But they are worth watching, because under the lid, there are some pretty good performers. And the Dow was up slightly and it continues to be up after hours. So let's take a look at the news across the wires. We can take a look at earnings before the bell this morning. AOS, Cambridge Bank Corp was up slightly. Commvault was a big gainer today, really jumped, was up a little over 8%. DH Danaher was up slightly. Brinker International was up slightly. GM had a big gap up, stayed in the middle of its range, up 6.9%. Corning had a big gap up as well. HCA was up today, big gap up. Hess Midstream continues its trend upward. Hope Bancorp had a pullback. Hubble really jumped 3.53% into the breakout mode. JetBlue had a pullback, slight pullback here. Sure, we'll look more closely at this and when we get to the news section. Manpower Group sold off initially and then fought back, was slight gain, 0.73%. MDC up slightly. Limited partnership in the oil area up 1.21%. MSCI investment support tools up big time, up over 9%. And VR up slightly. Oshkosh sold off and then bounced off of its 10 and 20-day moving average, up 1%. Pfizer is selling off, tried to move higher and then sold off. And Pulte Home tried to move higher and then sold off at the close. Polaris sold off close to 4%. Finally, UPS gap down over 8%. So that's everything before the open today. The world news, the Eurozone seasonally adjusted GDP was flat compared with previous quarter, expanded 0.1% versus the previous year. UK shop price inflation dropped 2.9% in January from 4.3% in December, driven by heavier discounting of goods in January sales. Spain's inflation rose 3.5% in the 12 months through January, driven by higher electricity prices, up 3.3% increase by the period through December. Preliminary data from the National Statistics Institute showed Spanish 12-month national consumer prices rose 3.4% through January. And now on to our sector news. General Motors, we looked at earlier, quarter four adjusted EPS $1.24 versus estimate $1.16. Dillard's, Citi, and MasterCard announced that the companies have entered into new agreements to provide credit card program for Dillard's customers. Dillard's is off slightly. Citibank gapped up and closed near its high, and MasterCard was up as well, above its breakout zone. We looked at MDC, quarter four EPS $1.56 versus $1.49, and not much change there. Polaris, quarter four adjusted EPS $1.98 versus estimate $2.57. This is the reason for the drop. Big miss there. Pulte Home raises share repurchase authorization by 1.5 billion. Quarter four EPS $3.28 versus consensus of $3.22. I guess it wasn't enough for what people were looking for. Whirlpool, quarter four ongoing EPS $3.85 versus estimate $3.56. On to energy, industrials, and materials. Cleveland-Cliffs, quarter four EPS lost 31 cents versus estimate of 4 cents. Crane, quarter four adjusted EPS 90 cents versus estimate of 82 cents. A big move up 8.24. Graco, quarter four adjusted EPS 80 cents versus 79 cents. And initially sold off, pulled back to the 50-day, and then moved up. Hallmark and Payne is a big mover today. Gapped up nearly 12%, closed in the middle of its range. Nucor, quarter four adjusted EPS $3.16 versus $2.90. Potlatch, quarter four adjusted EPS 12 cents versus 3 cents. And people were looking for a lot more there. We just looked at UPS. Shares fall 4%. Quarter four adjusted EPS $2.47 versus $2.46. Missed consensus of $25.45 billion in revenues. And Woodward, which had been on the rise, tried to move higher and then sold off, down 0.87%. Financials, Morgan Stanley upgraded Citigroup to overweight and from underweight. Target to 65 from 46. Bank of America to overweight from equal weight. Target 41 from 32. And Goldman Sachs to overweight from equal weight. Target to 449 from 333. And then Alexander Real Estate, quarter four AFFO share was $2.28 versus $2.29. We got a pullback there. Equity Lifestyle, quarter four normalized FFO 71 cents versus 72 cents. Service First Bancorp, quarter four adjusted EPS 91 cents versus 86 cents. And now on to healthcare. Danaher, quarter four adjusted EPS 209 versus $1.89, and it gaps up. It closes near its high up 4.71%. Vertex announced positive results from its phase 3 program for selective NaV1.8 inhibitor treatment of moderate to a severe acute pain, and it is moving up 2.35%. Finally, on to technology, media, and telecom. Big Commerce forecast Q4 adjusted operating income to exceed high ends of view, and that pulled back even on that news. Calix Q4 EPS 43 cents versus estimate 36 cents, and a gap down 25%. It's amazing. I guess people were expecting a lot more. Revenues were 264.7 million versus estimate of 264.39. I guess this is why it pulled back. They were expecting a lot more in revenues. Celestica, I believe, was a big mover today. It gapped up and then closed near its low, only up 1.66%. F5 Networks Q1 EPS 343 versus estimate of 304. Moved up, big gapped up, and then sold off hard the rest of the day. Harmonic Q4 adjusted EPS 13 cents versus 10 cents. Was up earlier and closed in the middle of its range, up 1.8%. Sanmina Q1 adjusted EPS $1.30 versus $1.22. Gapped up and closed in the middle of its range for the day, up 28%. Super Micro, pretty much the leader in AI. They had a stronger year last year than NVIDIA. Q2 adjusted EPS $5.59, tops consensus of $4.93, and sees many quarters of more sales, more of what they've delivered. That's what they talked about on the call. So that's the story there. Now let's see if we can look at what moved the market today. Lululemon, strong performer, pulled back to its, I believe this is the 10 and 20-day moving average, 0.12%. Commvault we just looked at, and Super Micro we just looked at. First five we looked at. Strong leisure company in India continues up strong. Make My Trip up 5.77%. We just looked at Celestica. Lennox International was up 2.44%. We just looked at Vertex. We looked at Danaher. And we didn't look at Granger. It was up a little over 2%. And finally, Train Technologies. And I'm going to go to this other list here. This was the big movers with up 3% with 50% increase in volume. The Bank Corp just continues rising. BRT, also in the AI area, manufacturers and services, digital infrastructure. We put on I believe a 5560 options, vertical options trade, and up 5% with 100% increase in volume. We looked at Helmer and Payne. Cisco in the food area, up 11% on their earnings, 1.55 surprise. and it's up 7.5% today. Liberty Energy had pulled back, and then they moved up a little over 8%. Crane up 8.24%. We saw General Motors. We got Maui Land. Looks like they're trying to break out, up 7.6%. We look at Citic Corp. We looked at Cleveland Cliffs. Here's, once it comes, Nucor went right through the breakout zone, up close to 7%. Corning gapped up nearly 7%. We looked at MSCI. California Bank Corp kind of broke out and then closed near its low into the breakout zone. We looked at Sanmina, Commvault, Wilscott Mobile Mini on construction projects is used a lot. These mini portable space, and it's up 5% today. This is a big mover. Corbus Pharmaceuticals had a big gap up here. They have, I believe it's a 50 to 55 12-month target. We'll just see if this can settle down into a space where you could invest in. And Cura Oncology continues its strong performance on the gap up. It did close below its gap, but now it is moving up again. So that's, take a look there. MCO on a down day, it's getting pretty close to its breakout. Take a look at Otter Tail Power. It moved further into the breakout zone. It had moved in there yesterday. Their earnings are in 13 days. There's a lot of buying, a lot of blue buying here. This little red area here, this is where to take your losses. Remember, you want to take your losses anywhere from, I would say, 1.5% to 5%, and keep your winners 10 to 25%. Then you'll be assured of making money. Let's see what else is trending. We can take a look at our list that I referenced earlier. But before I do that, let me go back here and take a look at crypto. It had a pullback after the ETFs were announced. And you can see this is Ethereum. The pullback below 50 days. And it has been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight days up in a row. Bitto is up about the same, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. GBTC is has the most Bitcoin of anybody out there, and they're up close to 1% today. And look at MicroStrategy, and we're up slightly today, so they're up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I told everybody that I bought this at 481. Went up to 525 yesterday and then pulled back. This is pretty interesting. Bitcoin miner. I looked at it on the chart. Seems like over time it outperforms all the other miners. Was up on average 12.7%. I guess in maybe about a 2-year comparison on the charts. So we'll just continue to watch this. I'm thinking of moving. I did close in one account. I closed Bitfarm today. Just didn't like the action. May get into Cypher. I'll continue to watch it. And let's go to our list. Want to look at Datadog gas. So here we go. Datadog had a big move up yesterday, had a little bit of a pullback today, down 1.58. Stealth gas provides international seaborne transportation for petroleum and petrochemical. Looks pretty strong here, right in the buy zone, up 3.5% today, though the volume was kind of muted. Here's one of the other competitors. Oh, it's down yesterday and it kind of breaks out today. TK continues its strong move. So there you have that. Let's take a look at, before we move on, some of the ETFs. Financials just keep on moving with moves like Citibank. Take a look at XP. In Brazil had a little bit of a pullback today. Wells Fargo jumps into the buy zone today, up 1.6. JP Morgan had a big jump today, up 2%. And then the regional bank ETF had a slight pullback today, but it's forming a pretty good base here. Energy bounce. And now the reason that Weatherford and other companies in this area had a bit of big pullback today. Saudi Arabia said they're canceling all drilling projects moving forward. It may or may not affect them directly, but it's definitely going to affect the price that they charge for their projects. So this is why they had the big pullback here. Take a look at Halliburton as well. We closed Halliburton this morning. It did close up earlier, but it's better to be safe than sorry. Want to keep all losses pretty small. And this, we did stay in the crude. Oil prices, I think, will tend to firm up. ExxonMobil had a big move up, so they don't really have a lot to do with drilling over in Saudi Arabia. It's more on the oil pricing. So they're moving up. Looks like they're breaking out of a double bottom base here. And as we looked at, I believe this is Hess, up slightly, 0.4%. Let's keep moving on. I think we got a little bit of, we got a little bit of a pullback in communication services with Meta. I think Meta was up, but Google was down. Yeah, Meta did close down, and now it's down 10 points based on the earnings from Google. And let's take a look. This is the software. A slight pullback. Technology. Slight pullback. Did look like HubSpot had another strong move. The software was up to 623, but after hours pullback in some of the other news that we got. Let's see if what Microsoft is currently doing. It's pulling back. I'm not sure if the conference call is ongoing, but we'll just continue to watch this. What happens after hours does not always portend what's going to happen the following day, but keep in mind that everything is at pretty high levels. And Tom Lee reiterated his view that he thinks in February things are going to pull back. So this is semiconductors off a little bit today. Infrastructure is actually up today. Building materials up slightly. And home builders as well. See what this ETF, or not ETF, this IPO in the home builders got back in around 25.90, I believe. So it's performing okay. And let me see if we didn't look at Goosehead. Goosehead pretty tight in this area, so it looks pretty well. In the weight loss area, NVO continues to perform well. It's right in the blue breakout zone. See what Petrobras Brazil did, and a slight pullback today, but it's right in the breakout zone as well. A KNF. Knife River, slight pullback today, but it's pretty strong in construction. And we'll look at two more issues on our watch list. Herc Holdings, a little bit of a pullback, but it still looks pretty good. Could take off. And the final one we're going to look at, Nature's Sunshine, manufacturer network marketer offering herbal products, kind of in a base here. So we'll continue to watch that. And we'll get to more of our watch list items tomorrow. But that wraps it up for Taco Tuesday. Thanks for tuning in for Mornings with Michael, which is brought to you for information and educational purposes only. Since we do not know you or your background, it's up to you to do your own due diligence. If you have any comments, we'd love to help you meet your financial goals and activities. And in the meantime, go out there, continue working on your goals and your activities, and you'll be amazed where you end up. Thanks for tuning in, and hope everybody has a great Taco Tuesday.